The topic of our further study will be three Occidental religions: Judaism, Christianity and Islam. These three are often referred to as Abrahamic religions, which comes from the word Abraham, which comes from the root word Abram. So, to understand these three religions, here is a small account of how Abraham and later the other religions were born. I may not be accurate with the pronunciation of these words, which could be in Hebrew or Arabic language. So, those of you who have had a better exposure to the Western religions, either from your school days, college days, or through your friends, or by reading various books and listening to lectures, should magnanimously forgive me for the mispronunciation that I could come across. I am just reading the way it has been written. I may not know the exact pronunciation to the word. So, we speak about the paradise lost, the paradise gained, and then we talk about Adam and Eve. So, Adam and Eve have a family tree downwards. So, in that tree comes Seth, and Seth's sons was Enos, and then came Kenan, and then Mahalalel, and then Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and then comes Noah. Noah is a very, very popular personality in the Old Testament, and Noah had 3 children, of whom was Ham, very, very important. And in the lineage of Ham came Terah, who is regarded as the 9th in the descent from Noah. And Terah had 3 sons: Abram, Nahor and Haran. And along with his children, Terah, along with his 3 children and grandchildren, lived in the Ur of Chaldees. Now, Haran had, of the 3 sons, Abram, Nahor and Haran, Haran had a son called Lot. Similarly, Abram, the eldest of them all, Abram was married to Sarai, and for a very, very long time since marriage they didn't have children. So, after the death of Terah, Abram, the son of Terah, his wife Sarai, and the son of Haran, who was Lot, they all left for better pastures. They left to a place called Canaan, and that was done because the God, in their belief, had told that you have to leave the country for better pastures and you will find a better life. So, Abram was around 75 years old when he left Haran with his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot. So, they travelled to Shechem in Canaan and they settled there. At that point in time in Canaan, there was severe famine, and Abram and Lot, in seeking again better pastures, they couldn't survive there. So, along with Sarai, they sojourned to Egypt. On the way to Egypt in a camp, Abram is said to have told his wife Sarai that while we get into the Egyptian kingdom, let you be introduced as my sister. So, the husband tells the wife, you have to be introduced as my sister, so that the Egyptians don't kill you. This is, I didn't find a reason for this. This is what is mentioned in the Old Testament. And then when they entered Egypt, the 3 of them, the Egyptian officials were mesmerized with the beauty of Sarai, and they took her to the court of the Pharaoh who ruled the Egyptian kingdom then. And this king gave in exchange a lot of goods to Abram for having given his sister. They didn't know it was Abram's wife Sarai. They took Sarai into their fold. Since this was not agreeable to the practices of those days, it is said that the god was very angry and he gave plagues to the country. Upon analyzing what could have led to the Lord's anger, Pharaoh understands that the Sarai whom he had bought from Abraham was not Abraham's sister, but it was his wife. So he gives back Sarai to Abraham and admonishes them and sends them away from the kingdom. When they leave from Egypt, Abraham, who had by then, because Lot, who was there till then, before they entered Egypt, went to another place to run his own herd. Now the moment he came back, Abraham came back, Abraham's herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen, they were clashing. So they had to choose their area, so they demarcated. Lot went further north and he settled near Jordan. And that was eastward to his place, but from the map perspective, he went northwards. And Abraham went south to Hebron and settled in the plain of Mamre. And there he used to attend to the tomb where God used to be worshipped. But Abraham and Sarai continued to live for a very long time as a couple, but they didn't have children. So that is when Sarai feels that to carry forth the tradition of Abraham, she gives the lady who used to assist her, the Egyptian lady called Hagar, to Abraham. And Abraham has a physical relationship with that lady called Hagar, and she turns pregnant and eventually delivers a child. And that child was called Ishmael. And this Ishmael who was born, the moment he was born, Hagar develops pride in her and starts looking down upon Sarai. And Sarai, unable to take this, definitely tells Abraham to banish Hagar and her son Ishmael out of the kingdom. As said, so they leave the kingdom, and Hagar, with the help of God, finds a loaf of bread, and she sustains her life and the life of her son Ishmael as well. 13 years later, Abraham, while he is 99 years old, is declared by God that you shall be called Abraham from today, from Abraham, which means you shall be the father of many, many nations. And as the father of many, many nations, to bring about rules to his followers, Abraham insists circumcision as one of the main practices that needs to be followed by the male followers of that religion, wherein the foreskin of the male genital organ is removed in the first year of the male child's birth. Thereby, he also commands that Sarai, who was later will be called Sarah, shall have a child. He was 99 years of age and he had a son, and that son was called Isaac. So he had Ishmael through Hagar and Isaac through Sarai, who was later called Sarah. So Ishmael and his mother Hagar, who were initially banished, later joined the husband Abraham. And the moment Isaac was born, again Ishmael starts teasing the child. Hagar is, the mother Sarah is unable to bear. Again she asks them to get out of the kingdom. Now Abraham was commanded by God, it is said, to give up his son Isaac for sacrifice. So in the land of Moriah, he takes the son Isaac to the peak of that particular hill, and he is about to sacrifice, and on his way the child keeps asking, "Dear father, what are you going to do?" "Now I am going to sacrifice an animal," he says. And true to his words, while he was about to sacrifice Isaac, the angels come and stop him, and God says through his voice that you shall not sacrifice your son Isaac, and sacrifice this ram. And that animal was sacrificed. And later it is said that Sara was dead. Sarai, his first wife, was dead, and he buried her in the cave of the patriarchs near Hebron. And after the death of Sarah, Abraham marries another woman. In the sense, he has a relationship with another woman and called Keturah. And through Keturah, he has 6 sons: Zimran, Joshkan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak and Shua. So these are the 6 sons. So this is the lineage of Abraham. So these religions, those religions that keep Abraham very, very important in their list of prophets, messengers, teachers, those religions are referred to as Abrahamic religions. Those religions constitute Judaism, that says that Jewish people are the original descendants and children of God, or the chosen people of God. That also gives a lot of importance to Abraham. Christianity, Apostle Paul believes that Abraham's faith in God is very, very important as compared to the Mosaic law, and though they regard him Jewish, they give him a very, very high position. And in Islam, in the chain of prophets who came before Muhammad, it is said that Abraham occupies a very significant position. Now, speaking about Judaism, Judaism believes in one God, a very personal God, and it says especially Moses was the one who brought forth the quintessence of Judaism. So he brought forth Torah, the holy book, to the people in Hebrew. And Torah, though is regarded very heavily by the Jewish people, its tenets may not constitute or comprise the book of New Testament of the Christians. So it is said that Torah, the written law, constitutes of 613 commandments, and there is something called the oral law, which is not the written law, which talks about kashrut or kosher, which is the dietary rules, the dress, the prayer, the devotion that needs to be offered to the personal God, observance of holy days and so on for the practicing Jews. So as we go further into Judaism, Moses occupies a very significant position. So according to the book of the Exodus, Moses was born when the Israelis were the enslaved people, and they were a diminishing population, and the Egyptian pharaoh did not want their existence. That is when Moses, while he was born, his Hebrew mother called Jochebed, she put him to a basket and let him float on the waters of the Nile River. And this child, which was floating on the Nile River, was picked up by the pharaoh's daughter, who is often identified as Queen Bithia of Midrasu, and she nurtured this child, Moses. And when this child started becoming a philosopher and propagating certain tenets, he was banished, and he became the spokesperson, the protector of the Jews. And later he fled across the Red Sea. Where is the Red Sea? So when you see the map, you see India, you see Bay of Bengal on one side, on the eastern side, the Indian Ocean to the south. The Indian Ocean further extends itself as the Arabian Sea, and then it moves into the Arabian Peninsula. So on the west of the Arabian Peninsula and to the east of the African continent is a thin strip of water that goes further in, and that goes upwards into the Suez. So this stretch is called the Red Sea, which is very, very deep and highly saline in nature. So to take forth the people from the Egyptian kingdom, it is said that Moses prayed to the divine power so that the Red Sea can part. You will get to see a clip from one of the movies found in the open source about how Moses, through the divine power, invoking the divine power, parted the Red Sea, and the pharaohs who continued, a large section of them who wanted to kill the Jewish people, died, because as soon as the Jewish people left the land, the Red Sea parted. Again, the Red Sea came to its position, thereby drowning their chariots and their cavalry in this particular video. So, Moses then leads the Jewish people. He goes atop the hill and says that I have received the commandments of God, and comes back to the people and says that you need to practice these 10 commandments of God. So they became the 10 commandments. So I am going to read out one commandment after the other. I am the Lord, the God. You shall not have any gods before me. So God tells you should not revere any other God. I am the only God. You shall not take the name of the Lord in vain. Unlike, just to give you a comparison, in Sanatana Dharma we say you can take the name of Lord Krishna, Rama, he is after all the Father, you can take him at any point in time, that name will give you solace. Here it believes that you should not take without any purpose, just like that you cannot call the name of God. Remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. That's the third commandment. Honor your father and mother. You shall not kill. This is the general statement, a commandment. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal, asteyam, like how the Jainas believe. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet, have a relationship with others, your neighbor's wife. You shall not covet your neighbor's goods. You shall not take away their possessions. These are the 10 commandments. So, in essence, this is Judaism, one of the precursors of the precedents to Christianity and Islam. Now, let me go to the next religion, which is Christianity. Christianity remains as one of the most followed religions of the world in the current day. It has many subdivisions, from being a Catholic to being a Protestant to subsects like being a Baptist, a Pentecost, a Seventh-day Adventist, and so on. While understanding Judaism from the tenets perspective, one thing that I am duty bound to say is about the presence of the Jewish community in Bharata Desham. What are the evidences and what is the story that's behind it? So it is said that the earliest Jews arrived in the Malabar coast, the coast of Kerala, while there was a Cochin kingdom, the Ernakulam kingdom. There is a traditional account which says that the traders from Judea arrived in Kraganur, the ancient port near Cochin, around the 562 BCE, which is 2500 years before. But this is a traditional account, not too many evidences supporting it. So why was this trade done? For that, the traditional account says that it was done because of the teak wood, ivory, spices, peacocks, monkeys. They were all very new for the Arabian continent people, for people in Israel. So this trading happened, is what some of the traditional accounts say. So there is a group of islands near Cochin even today, where there are small, very meager communities of Dutch, Hindu, Jewish, Christian communities. So there is a distinct community in a place called Anjuvannam, and here there is a synagogue of Mattanjeri, which belongs to the Paradeshi Jews. They are called Paradeshi Jews, and it is said that they were the ones who arrived, their ancestors arrived from Spain in the year 1492 CE AD. And adjacent to the Fort Cochin is this Jewish community at Mattanjeri, and this Paradesi synagogue that you see as a picture was said to be built in 1568 by Samuel Castile, David Belilla, and Joseph Levy. So the Cochin Jews, largely Jews, a very, very thin minority in India, largely in Kerala, the state of Kerala, followed by Maharashtra, are said to have had the grace of the kings of Kerala. So it is said that there is a Shasanam, it's called Shasanam, the copper plates on which the king is said to have given them around the date of 379 CE. roughly 1600 to 700 years before. And more authentic accounts state that the copper plates did not belong to that era, but it belonged to 1069 CE, which is roughly about 900 years before. So, around the time of Bhaskara Ravivarma, the 4th ruler in Maliban, he granted the copper plates to the Jews and said that this village called Anjuvannam will be the village of the Jewish community till the stars and the moon exists, is what this account says. And this remains protected in the synagogue of the Jews in Kerala. And it is said that the Jews continued trading with India even till about 1524, with especially the Malabar coast of Kerala. So, the presence of Jewish community, though it cannot be established in the first millennium, of course in the second millennium is well recorded, and they were being given a lot of hospitality by the kings of Kerala. So, this establishes that Judaism has had a connect with India, though its origin and tenets have nothing to do with India or the Indian religion. Its connection through trade and then settlement had relationship with India. And the Hindu rulers of India, as always, were being very magnanimous, immaterial of whether they received this in reciprocation in those countries or whether they are receiving in those countries. They were very magnanimous in being hospitable to the Jewish community, giving them place and giving them protection. So, this is with respect to Judaism, the Jews, their beliefs, their trade with India and their relationship with India. Now, going to Christianity, as mentioned before, remains to be one of the first, the largest practiced religion of this world. It has the highest number of followers. In its belief, core belief, it believes Jesus Christ is the Son of God and is a Messiah. He is the messenger of God. And it believes in the prophecies of the Old Testament and more importantly the New Testament. So, there have been many theological disputes within Christianity which has led to a lot of groups, but being a Catholic remains a largely practiced form of Christianity, followed by Protestants and other forms. So, the New Testament believes that the divinity to Christ came even while at his birth, and there is folklore which talks about the birth of Christ aligned with the stars and that guided the travelers thereby for the birth of Christ, which happened in a small cow shed. In those days it was the sheep there, to Mary and Joseph. Now, it also believes, one section of Christians also believe that divinity of Christ did not happen while at his birth. So, there is nothing called infant Jesus who is divine, but the divinity of Christ is associated while he was crucified and later he was resurrected. So, the resurrection of Christ, the moment he was crucified, he comes back from the dead on the third day. So, that is when divinity happened to him, is what another group of Christians believe. So, he is believed to be as per the Gospels of Matthew and Luke. So, there is Mark, Matthew, Luke and John. So, as per Matthew and Luke, it is believed that Jesus was conceived by the Holy Spirit and born to a Virgin Mary. So, the virginity of Mary is associated with divinity of Christ. So, now coming to Christians and their beliefs. It is said that Jesus was crucified and died a physical death and buried within the tomb, and he rose from the tomb later, which is often celebrated. His burial is Good Friday and then he coming back from the dead is Easter. So, this gap of two festivals in the gap of 3 days is celebrated by Christians across the world. So, besides the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, we do not have too many traditional authentic accounts that deal with the birth, the boyhood, the childhood and the nurturing of Jesus Christ. Yes, there is a lot of hearsay, but what is associated with Jesus Christ is what that happened in the last few days of Jesus Christ. So, some liberal Christians, it is said, some Christians who believe in logical reasoning do not believe in his physical resurrection of Jesus Christ, that his body came out of the dead. They believe in the spirituality of Christianity, but they don't believe in the physical resurrection of Christ. But there is one strong statement offered by Paul the Apostle, an early Christian and missionary, who says if Christ was not raised, then all our preaching is useless and your trust in God is useless. So he insists on the physical resurrection of Jesus Christ. Nevertheless, the Last Supper becomes very, very important in the life of Jesus Christ. After his entry into Jerusalem, we have an event called the Palm Sunday, where palms, as he walked seated on a donkey, palm leaves were waved on that particular Sunday and he was greeted. So there was a triumph in bringing him back to Jerusalem. So it is said that Jesus was later betrayed. So there were some incidents that happened in that week, and that began with the Last Supper. So Jesus, while he was having his Last Supper with his apostles, with his disciples, he is said to have said, so there are 4 references to it. In Matthew 26, the 24th and the 25th stanza talk about it. Mark 14, 18 to 21. In Luke, the 22nd, where you have the 21st and the 23rd that talks about it. In John, the 13th, where 21st to 30 talks about while he was having Last Supper with his disciples, it is said that Jesus told them that I shall be dead in a few days from now, and this shall happen because I will be betrayed, and I will be betrayed by one of those who is present along with me in this Last Supper, and woe to the man who betrays the Son of Man, it would be better for him if he had not been born, he says. And Matthew and John specifically talks about Jesus picking up a piece of bread, dipping it in the dish and giving it to Judas. Judas, who was the son of Simon Iscariot, was identified as the one who would betray. So Satan enters into him and he betrays to the king there, and Jesus is taken mercilessly by the streets. He is tortured. He is given a wreath and a tiara of thorns, and there is blood oozing on him, and he is hit all the way. He is asked to carry the heavy wooden cross across the streets, and as was the practice in those days, to anyone who betrayed or caused blasphemy, he was nailed on to the cross and he was crucified, and later his body was taken and buried, and later he rose from the dead, is what Christians believe. So as far as the relationship of Christianity goes with India, it is said that according to tradition, some Christians believe that Saint Thomas, who is called Thoma in the South Indian languages, and a large section of the Syrian Christians also believe that he landed in Kodungalur in 52 AD. But historians who believe in authentic sources denied this outright and say that trade relationship existed with the Middle East, but it was not with respect to religion. So St. Thomas coming to India is spoken of by the authentic historians as something which is not corroborated by evidences. So it is said that one of the earliest churches that is said to have come was called St. Thomas Syro Malabar Church in Palayur in Thrissur district of Kerala. Historically, it is also said that between 154 and 223 AD, Christian tribes were found in North India. Again, many evidences do not corroborate this claim. So, Marco Polo, which is very authentic, around the 1292 AD mentions that there were Christians following the religion of Christianity in the Malabar coast, again in the coast of Kerala, like how Judaism, Christianity is also associated with Kerala. Because most of the Western religions, for them, when their trade happened, it was for ivory, spices, which was Kerala was a center. And for them coming across the Arabian Sea, Kerala was one of the earliest places that they could have come. So, with regards to Christianity, this is the brief that we could associate ourselves with. Next comes the last of the religions that we have taken upon in the world religions, and the last of the three Western religions or Occidental religions is Islam, followed by Christianity, which has the highest number of followers in the world, comes Islam. So, Islam in its noun form is the fourth form of the root and means submission or total surrender, Islam. And when you constitute the active participle of that noun, Islam, to a person who follows Islam, it becomes Muslim. So, Islam, the word turns Muslim then, meaning the one who surrenders. So, the concept of total surrender is Islam. The one who surrenders to God becomes Muslim. So, the faith in Islam is broken into 6 aphorisms, 6 rules. Belief in the existence and oneness of God, who is Allah, says the first axiom. God is said to be one and indivisible. He is said to be the sustainer and is needed by all. He has never had offspring, nor will he be born ever. And there is no one comparable to him. So, this is what the 6 axioms of Islam states. Now, like Christianity, Islam also believes in the supernatural creation called angels. And they will have wings and they will fly, they will have clothes. So, they believe in such supernatural beings. Now, with respect to their understanding of Moses or Christ, they believe that such people were surely messengers, but the one and the only complete messenger and the only one who can never be competed or who doesn't have an equal or a parallel is what Muslims believe is the prophet, who is often referred to as Muhammad. So, in India, Muslims for a very long time were referred to as Mohammedans by the historians and the commoners as well. So, what is their belief? In brief, they believe in Moses, Abraham, David, Joseph, Jacob and Jesus, but their lineage starts and ends with Muhammad. So, Muhammad in their understanding is the only prophet. There will be no prophet after him, and he cannot be drawn or imagined in any forms, is their stringent rule. So, believe in the existence of the day of judgment. So, all 3 religions believe, and Islam also corroborates with Judaism and Christianity on the day of judgment, and they believe that Jesus and Moses shall be subservient to Allah, who shall occupy the central and the highest throne on the day of judgment. So, this belief in God also makes them to state that everything that is happening now is destined to happen because of the will and the wish of God. That is why Muslims for most statements or happenings will state Insha'Allah, which means as such God desires, as He wills, this has happened. So, they believe in the predestined current existence. And while we were discussing about Adam and Eve and spoke about Noah and then Abraham, who's converted to the Arabic word Ibrahim. So, in his lineage, we saw Ishmael or Ismail, and on the other side we saw Isaac. This Isaac's lineage is what that led to Moses and Christ, whereas Ismail's lineage is what that led to Muhammad. So, there are 5 pillars of Islam, and the first pillar is Shahada, that is the belief and the complete surrender to faith. So, they believe, the first pillar states that there is no God but God. There is only one God. If somebody else talks of another God, that is not God. There is only one God. So there is no God but God. And the only messenger of God is Muhammad. So there goes a line in Arabic. I may not be accurate with the pronunciation. La ilaha illa illahu Muhammadun Rasul illah. So it talks about no God but God, and Muhammad is the only prophet of God. So this is the first pillar of Islam. So this is one of the statements, the most important statements for any person to be converting to Islam. The second pillar is Salah, which is prayer. So they believe that namaz or reading up of the Quranic verses either verbally or mentally has to happen by a devout Muslim 5 times a day, at the dawn, in the night, and in the noon, afternoon and evening. So they believe in the 5 times prayers towards God, and all prayers have to face Mecca, whichever direction it is, wherever one is placed, they have to face Mecca. The third pillar is Zakat, which talks about the concept of charity. They largely believe that 2.5% of the annual income of a family must be reserved for charitable purposes. The fourth pillar is Zawm, which is keeping roza, fasting during the Ramazan month. Ramzan, which is Ramadan month. And they say one can eat and drink until the whiteness of the day appears and the darkness of the night ends. So if you see in the dawn and the dusk part, morning between 4:30 to 5:30, when the darkness is there and the day hasn't come at that point in time, and in the night where the day has ended and the night has begun, during those points of the day, food can be consumed even during fasting days, is what the fourth pillar states. Then the fifth pillar is Hajj, which is pilgrimage. So they believe in one's life, a devout Muslim is required to make a pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina during the 12th month of the lunar calendar, and the rituals comprise of shaving of the hair and holding 2 pieces of white cloth in their body. So it should not be stitched, it should just be white pieces of cloth, 2 pieces of cloth, so that there is uniformity amongst devotees, and they should all circumambulate the Kaaba, which is the black pedestal constituting of 4 walls covered, and it should be circumambulated. So this is the belief that Muslims house, and you will see a clip of how they go around Kaaba in Mecca.
Mecca sits in the western mountains of Saudi Arabia, in a sanctuary roughly 100 miles square. Since long before Islam, it has been considered sacred territory, where no one could hunt, cut trees, or fight. At the heart of the city is a great mosque called Al-Masjid Al-Haram, and at its center is the Kaaba. Muslims don't worship the Kaaba. They worship what it represents, the one God. Hajj takes place in and around Mecca. It is a series of rituals performed between the 8th and 13th days of the last month of the Islamic calendar. While circling the Kaaba is the final act of the pilgrimage, it is also the top priority for pilgrims when they first get to Mecca. For Muslims who have prayed in this direction every day for years, seeing the Kaaba for the first time is almost overwhelming. Now to the Valley of Mina, where the Prophet Muhammad stopped and rested on his Hajj nearly 14 centuries ago. This is a town that grows from virtually 0 to 2 million people overnight. At dawn on the next day, the camps stir with anticipation for the greatest day of the Hajj. 2 million people are off to the plain of Arafat. Some 50,000 vehicles clog the roads. Arafat is 8 miles east of Mina. It's the place, Muslims believe, Adam and Eve found each other after exile from Eden. And it's seen by many as a rehearsal for the Day of Judgment.
It's Judgment Day. All the trappings of life sort of fall away, and you see these people in front of God Almighty. And that's all there is.
A strange quiet descends in the afternoon as people turn inward. It's called the Standing at Arafat. Only when the sun has set can pilgrims leave Arafat. Nearly 2 million people stand poised to move as soon as the sun dips below the horizon. The pilgrims move back toward the white tents of Mina, where tomorrow they will engage in a symbolic battle with the devil. Here, Muslims believe, God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son, but the devil challenged him not to. One story says, Abraham pelted the devil with stones 3 separate times, chasing him away. 3 stone pillars mark the spots where Abraham stood his ground. At a place called Muzdalifa, on the way to the pillars, pilgrims pick up pebbles to stone Satan themselves. The ritual is called the Jumurat. With all other rites complete, pilgrims return to Mecca for a grand parting visit. They have all earned an honorific title, Haji for the men, Hajja for the women. Pilgrims arrive alone in a current of 1 million strangers and go home riding a spiritual wave of rebirth.
Now that you have seen the video, in the pre-Islamic era, when Arab traders used to come, so when I say Arab traders, today your imagination will be of a Muslim. Islam is 1400 to 1500 years old. Before that, there were many people who belonged to the local faiths who lived in the Arabian Peninsula. So it is said, in the pre-Islamic era, the Arab traders used to trade and visit the Konkan Gujarat coast because it was very close to them, and they used to come to the other ports of Southeast Asia. So historians Eliot and Dawson mention in their book of the history of India, as told by the historians, that the earliest Muslims were spotted in India around the 360 CE. And H.G. Rawlinson, in his book Ancient and Medieval History of India, claims that the first Arab Muslims settled along the Indian coast in the 7th century AD. And then a few coins of Umayyad were discovered in Kottamangalam in Ernakulam district of Kerala, and that belonged to the time period of 661 to 750 AD. And according to the legend of the Cheraman Perumals, it is said that the king gave a place for the Muslims to construct a mosque. So the Cheraman Perumal Jama Masjid is on the Malabar coast is regarded as one of the earliest mosques, and he belonged to the Chera dynasty, and he is said to have patronized the religion, in the sense he is said to have given magnanimously the space, like how most Hindu rulers were very magnanimous, were immaterial of whether that reciprocation comes or not. He gave away that place, and it is said that the mosque even today in Kerala exists. So Kerala, from the Indian perspective, becomes a fulcrum when speaking about the earliest evidences found of Judaism, Christianity and Islam in India. So in this course of understanding the world religions, I have just attempted to provide a very, very thin wafer brief to the religions. These religions could be an ocean of knowledge in itself. One could go deep, go into its tenets, theology and philosophy. As stated at the commencement of the course, my aim is to just introduce you to the world religions. Whether you find it relevant, irrelevant, useful, not useful, deep, very, very, very deep you have gone into the religion, or if you find it superficial, as stated earlier, my aim is to just introduce. As much as we could be devout Hindus following our own philosophy, it is important we also know what are the other religions, what are its basic tenets. Then later, if you would like to research, you can even end up going into the tenets so deep that you can end up even critiquing the religion. philosophically and theologically, we have believed in India that we must always debate and discuss most topics. Though those world religions may not patronize you or may even admonish you and may even see it as a blasphemy for you to critiquing their religions, from the Hindu perspective, it is just, we are not branding the followers of those religions, be it the Muslims of Islam, the Christians of Christianity, the Jews of Judaism, the Buddhists of Buddhism, the Jains of the Jainism, the Sikhs of the Sikhism. We are not branding the followers good or bad. We are nobody to do that. How can we brand somebody good or bad? But it is a theoretical knowledge that we are trying to critique. We are just trying to find the good and the bad, the pros and the cons of the religion. So that could be attempted by you as your own assignment or task. But this religion was meant, this subject in this particular course was meant only to introduce you to world religions so that we are abreast, that we are living in a society. Today I could be living in India, tomorrow your child could go to some part of Europe, so tomorrow your child could go to Middle East. So they should know what are the tenets of the religion so that we are tolerant and respectful of their beliefs. At the same time, we have a minimal requirement and an expectation from the other religions to treat Hinduism, its culture, its tenets, its beliefs, its followers also with equal respect. So, tolerance is a word that has been used and abused these days. If somebody asks me whether I have to be tolerant to another religion, I would say no. Because my religion, Sanatana Dharma, has taught me to be respectful of other religions. Tolerate means you are there besides me, I will tolerate you, which is I'm just holding you for some time. No, I should be respectful of the other religion. Yes, my belief and their beliefs, my philosophy and their philosophy could be poles apart. But as individuals, we should know how to respect each other's beliefs without forcing. Without coming with the medieval mindset of conversion. If we come with the concept of understanding each other's religions, probably there will be even more intellectual places of debate and discussion. So this was the aim. So in Bhāratiya Sāra Bodhani, you might have come across me dealing with analysis of Rāmāyana, Mahābhārata, Purānās, the Indian architecture, how it is related to the scriptures, Sānskritam, the language and its literature in the regional Indian languages, and then dealing with Bhakti, the Indian classical music and dance, and the introduction to Vedās, where we deal with Purusha Suktam, Shri Suktam, Durga Suktam, Bhu Suktam, Nila Suktam. And suddenly you may find that why world religions? As I mentioned, this is only to be abreast, keep ourselves abreast of the world religions. And the relevance or non-relevance is up to you to decide. Thank you.